scalable modular Hempcrete panels, alignment with national carbon reduction targets and housing targets.
Our next speaker is again from a sponsor, Trobe University. It's a great opportunity now to hear from, we have a sort of double act happening. We have Dr. Ernesto Valenzuela and Professor David Fleming from Trobe University. They'll be talking to us about affordable carbon housing using Hempcrete modular panels. So I'm sure that'll be close to the hearts of many people here going, well, how can we build out a hemp? Modular sounds like a logical way to go. Industry insights and future actions. So I'll invite them up now to take the podium.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's a great audience to have. It's a privilege. Feeling like I'm praying to the choir. Everybody's a supporter of the industry, so it's very different than our world of academia. We have to convince the editor and the reviewers. First of all, credit is due. We acknowledge funding from the Phil Warden Research Institute, and a special thanks to Phil Warden. Everybody knows him, right? With all his support, his directive and network opportunities, and also to the research committee of the WRI. Also, many thanks to the industry participants, to the experts that were available to our questions. We are also thankful to the members of the Australian Hemp Council, but any expression is our interpretation of those communications and that information. So we're tasked to an exploration of what could be the potential of Hempcrete to support sustainable housing construction in Australia, with a particular objective geared toward scalable modular Hempcrete panels, and what could be the alignment with national carbon reduction targets and housing targets. We involved with stakeholder engagement with the members of the construction, the hemp, and the policy sectors. We identify, for our conclusion at this level, is an identification of the challenges and outlining of some sort of recommendation of future actions. We have 2 products available. Those are the available website. One is a brief, and another one is a report. But we will conclude, or I will stop my presentation around probably minute 11, 12, so that Professor Fleming can come and a sort of a call to action, and what are the future steps, the future actions that we're going to be doing as at Trobe University with the collaboration, with your collaboration. Good. So what is the background? The global construction industry in regards to the carbon emission targets. So we know that it contributes about 38% of the global energy-related CO2 emissions. 26% come from the embodied carbon emissions, and 74% from what is the operational carbon emissions. So what is the current focus at a global level is the concentrating on reducing operational costs. We're having a very interesting conversation in the hall about the fluctuating temperatures in rooms now. With all these probably intelligent systems, we never feel all right. It feels too cold, it feels too hot. But anyway, that's because the emphasis is on that. The challenge probably for Australia is traditional materials. If we want to focus on embodied emissions, the current focus is, or the current available materials is still very much geared toward what is a very carbon-dominant sort of environment. In particular for the Australian sector, so we have the picture for 2019 to our left, and we have the 80% of the total emissions or the proportion is from the operational emissions. Doing a projection, business as usual, to 2050, given this concentration on the operational costs, it is projected that now 85% of those emissions are going to be linked to what is embodied carbon. So that is a challenge, or that is probably the opportunity for the industry in terms of what we can do better, what the industry can do better. In terms of the construction policies, so we have those international standards. One of the most common complaint or common comment is what is that sort of resistant to adopting sustainable practice, or resistant from builders in terms of accepting these new materials into what it will be the business as usual. We have the national construction codes and the updates to the energy efficiency right now to 6 and going to 7. This is sort of a moving targets, what could be further changes to the higher standards. So how can the industry can converge to that one and become a solution? Going to what could be the focus of our interest, right? So the prefabricated modular housing potential. So we have right there several of initiatives from the government signaling, gearing towards what could be affordable housing, what could be that sort of meeting that goal of the carbon emissions targets, net zero 2050, but also the intentions of the government to alleviate, obviously, with the current inflation and prices that are occurring is very important. That's what we see a solution. I'll have to skip the question because I don't have that much time, but thank you very much. So in terms of the price projections, so we have to our right, that's sort of the cost, that's 2023, sort of to get an idea what could be the price targets if we're talking about hemp construction, if we're talking about modular Hempcrete panels. So those are to our left, sort of the probably could be tentative competitive prices. So to give us an idea where it should be. We all understand in this audience about the benefits, but probably the more important in terms of the emission targets is the carbon sequestration capacities. We have some facts in there. We have a wonderful presentation by David, who was also gave us generously his time during our stakeholder engagement. He did his private demonstration to us, so it was spectacular. And also, when we're talking about these sort of panels, and then we have this diversity in what is available. So we went ahead and tried to put everything together. These just 2-3 examples that give you this sort of an ample variety. And that, I would think that's probably what the industry can converge, right? And try to form scales, or economies of scales, and try to converge on what could be the right product, the right size, right? But that gives us an idea of the diversity. More details you can find in the report. This is sort of an idea in terms of what is the sort of a circular economy. We have some information. We're not determining that that's the price that it should be. It's some of the suggestions in terms for the farmer perspective of the first step of the supply chain. We all understand, we all know, we have been several times now that decorticators are one of the bottlenecks of the industry. Has been mentioned the sort of adaptations to cotton machinery and that sort of things. And we have some information, some data there in terms of this transformation of the machinery, consumption of this machinery. Earlier, we have a presentation about, or some comments about the imports of herd. And we have the trajectory, what's going on in terms of what is the imports of herd in Australia. We have in terms of the thousands of dollars, and the main imported country for us, or exported countries to us. We have the Europe, Netherlands, France, and South Africa becoming more important, or at least in that previous year, or the latest available year. In terms of some facts, in terms of manufacturing, first of all, it has been said that the industry is very insular. It's very hard to get that sort of convergency. Everybody likes to protect the little baby, so information is not really readily available. You have to invest in making relationships, that sort of things. But this is sort of some ideas in terms of where the industry should be aiming, should be converging in terms of that aspect of supply chain. Wonderful to follow the conversation of the quality assurance and control and certifications. That's probably where the industry is missing right now. So nothing new in that context. Now, once we're talking about panel transportations, what are probably the barriers of the challenge? It's going to be the location of the facilities, how important it is in terms of the reducing economies of scale or the cost. And then some of the ideas about Dunagro, we probably could agree that they are probably the leaders, or they are right there in front in terms of the specifications of the constructions. That sort of gives you an idea of the needs of the industry. That's sort of a background. So what we conclude, so key actions or recommendations for something to happen, the consolidation of these modular Hempcrete panels in this 5 to 7 times horizon. So we have, that's the lack of standardization and certification. Probably, and it has been hammered several times by now, the industry collaboration is needed in the industry. We have the limitations to local access to herd, and then probably following other approach in other industries, a more cooperative approach probably could be the solution. In terms of production of scale, we need to develop probably, or the industry needs to develop large commercial production facilities. and we are talking here about the modular panels, right? So ideally located near input and demand sources. Same could be said about the transportation, right? Because of the higher input, the high cost of transportation or the risky transportation of the panels, the risky element of the transportation of the panels. Land availability and cost is a prevalent issue, right? So those are the conversations. We don't have that much information or that much background, but probably that for the ones that are heavily involved in the Hempcrete development, probably that's something that resonates very hard for you. That's what our impression. Certainly has market awareness. We keep hearing that one over the different presentations. The recommendation or the approach could be a more sort of the industry coordination, sort of campaigns and government incentives. Life cycle analysis certainly is missing in the industry, so it's something that could put the industry in a better standing. Counting with that. Government support, yeah, sure, everybody likes to put that one in there. So, but recommendation, collaborative efforts between industry and government, right, probably will help overcome barriers and lead to the consolidation of the industry. Cost competitiveness, probably the development of target incentive programs, especially with farmers. Enhance industry coordination. Emphasize the life cycle cost or recirculation, for example, and product testing, certification, and especially attract investment for the large scale production facilities, providing training, education opportunities like the presentation we have in the morning. My final one, and then David will come with what I mentioned as a call to action. So Dundag is probably a very successful example in the industry, so exploring a similar vertical cooperation approach in Australia. So that could be sort of how we can mirror that sort of a successful story. So David will take it from here, and that's one more time, questions, and the link to the report. Thank you.
David Fleming Munoz, originally from Chile, that's my accent, even though my last name is Fleming. I'm not Australian, I'm Chilean. Well, I've been in Australia 12 years, I'm Australian now, but... so Ernesto and my colleague Julio, with support of the Warner Research Institute, did this project, right, which kind of was like industry consultation. My colleagues talked to many of you, right? So in the next couple of years, what we want to do now is actually to put we're working on it now, is just to put an ARC linkage bid, where the idea is kind of addressing some of the issues that Ernesto talked about, but actually talk more in the language of politicians, right? To try to put the dollar value in front and say, look, these are actually the costs, these are actually the benefits of the industry as we go forward. And to do so, yes, and to do so, what we're developing now, happy to talk later tonight in the dinner, I'm going to be here tomorrow as well. We have been working with Phil, with the Warner Research Institute, and also talking with Australian Hemp, and both are supporting the project, so we're going to put the bid together to the ARC linkage. And the main idea of the project is have a lot of words there, right? But probably the first paragraph is to establish a scalable industry framework and support strategic alliances to accelerate the adoption of modular Hempcrete panels as a solution for affordable housing. But what does involve? What is what we want to do in this project? Actually, what we want to do, especially, is address the critical gaps that we have so far by delivering a comparative economic and environmental assessment of Hempcrete panels, modular panels, to other alternatives in the industry, right? So actually to show how we should project things into the future and what we need to do in order to get the costs right to make it a very feasible and economical viable solution for Australia. To do that, we're going to be benchmarking the broad economic benefits of modular Hempcrete panels, right? I mean broad because we need to incorporate all environmental benefits. We need to incorporate actually the benefits to the regions, right? And the benefits for sustainability in the industry, in the construction industry. So to do that, we're going to create a comprehensive and evidence-based business case to support the national sustainable housing goals and facilitate financial engagement with the Hempcrete industry. So these are the two objectives that we are working on. Still space for improvement. We still have a couple of weeks before submitting the bid. In summary, those are the key objectives that we want to emphasize, all right? So one is to evaluate the regional development benefit of the hempcrete industry, which is very relevant because it's a local industry, right, where we need to work in regions, right, in particular business cases, considering regional scales, that actually the supply chains go from producers, as we all know, of course, to the construction site of the same region. So the supply chain integration of the region is very key because it provides a lot of benefits in terms of regional development. And we want to emphasize that, and we want to put numbers on it. So we want to estimate and calculate actually how many jobs, for instance, and development of the Hempcrete modular panels can provide to the regions. The environmental benefits that have been discussed today a lot, and of course, the benefit for the industry, the construction industry itself. So that's kind of what is the business case, but what the business case for what, right? So this is one of the key things that we want to develop too as objective too. We want to develop some sort of integrated regional development framework, right? So some sort of tool, some sort of blueprint, right? Where we can show clearly especially to the politicians, right, to the government, what are the type of investments that we need to have in order to achieve the goal of having affordable housing, right? So we want to build that in a sort of what we have been discussing with Phil, right? It's sort of about reverse engineering, right? So we say we want 10,000 houses, affordable houses, built with Hempcrete modular panels. What do we need to achieve that, right? And then it's just to try to make the business case, considering a regional context, a regional case. We need to just find maybe a particular region in Australia where we can actually model and try to get all the connections that needs to happen in the supply chain to achieve that goal, and try to estimate and calculate the costs of that as well as possible. So that blueprint of the development of the industry in a particular region can then be applied or at least serve as a guideline for other regions to do the same. It's kind of very ambitious. It's going to be based on a lot of assumptions because, of course, as we know, the industry is still not well developed. But are important assumptions to make because if we wanted to achieve a goal, we need to aspire to the goal and say this is the goal that we want and this is what needs to happen to achieve it. Yeah, again, this is the research team that we're working with, but again, as collaboration with the Warner Research Institute and the council. But if anyone is interested, I'm happy to keep talking during the day and tomorrow.